What is going on, everybody? It is me again. It is HorrorFan34, and welcome to another video. And welcome to day 3 of the 31 Days of Horror challenge in October. Now that we are getting on to day 3 of the challenge, I figured I'd talk about an underrated sort of like zombie film. It's a good mixture of like horror and comedy in it, but it's definitely one of the more underrated zombie films of all time. Because when it comes to like zombie movies in general, you think of like Return of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, both the remake and the original Day of the Dead, the Night of the Living Dead remake from 1990, or the original from the 60s, or you think of like those kind of Zombie by Lucio Fulci and like all the classic zombie films. But nobody brings this one up at all. And like I said, it's a very underrated hidden gem. And that review is going to be on Dead and Deader, which I believe was from 2006 or something like that. Yeah, 2006 this was. Yes, and it stars Dean Cain of the Adventures of Lois and Clark. Yep, Dean Cain's actually the star of the film. Now, before I get onto it, like this has a really cool cast of people. I'll just say that you have not only Dean Cain, you have Susan Ward, who was in Wild Things 2. You have Guy Torry, who was Lamont in American History X. Armin Shimmerman, Quark from Star Trek Deep Space Nine, he's in here. Ellie Cornell from Halloween 4 and 5, she has a role in this. You have Colleen Camp, who was in the original I forget the name of the movie where it was like where Knock Knock was a remake of. She was in the original version of that. You also have Peter Green, Zed from Pulp Fiction. He was also Dorian in The Mask, and he was one of the bad guys in Judgment Night. He's in here as a doctor. And the basic idea with Dead and Deader is that you have Dean Cain as a guy who's a Special Force Commando. It takes place out in Cambodia. As there's a Special Forces unit going out into Cambodia into this medical outpost, and they don't hear from anything, so they send a Special Force units in there headed by Dean Cain. And everybody ends up getting killed by these zombies. Dean Cain sort of like survives it, but he wakes up in a body bag, and he wakes up in an autopsy, and you find out that Dean Cain was resurrected from the dead pretty much, and basically he has like a appetite for raw flesh, and his whole team has been resurrected, and basically his team, now that they've been resurrected, have to go after these zombies pretty much. And that's the basic idea of the film. Now, what makes the film work is the cast itself. Dean Cain, really enjoyed Dean Cain in this as the lead hero. And it was cool to see people from like other horror genres, like, Ellie Cornell from Halloween 4, Colleen Camp. And it was also cool to see people like Armin Shimmerman, Peter Green. Always been a big fan of Peter Green, whether it be like I said, Judgment Night, even Blue Streak, Pulp Fiction, things of that nature. And I also think the film too also has a really fun sense of humor to it. And the makeup effects is actually done by Greg Nicotero and Howard Berger. They did a really pretty good job on the special makeup effects, which I think this was a film that was made for Sci-Fi, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And like I said, you got some really cool like deaths in here, like a lot of really good zombie attacks. And I will say one of the coolest effects in the film is when Dean Cain first wakes up from his autopsy, and that's when he finds out that like he has an appetite for raw flesh, and he has like inhuman strength, and things like that. And and then he decides to test himself, so he puts like a syringe into his arm, and blood doesn't come out. Like it's just like this green goo that comes out of his arm, and then a scorpion comes out of his arm, like out of his skin. And I thought that was a really cool looking effect, and I think the makeup effects are very well done by Nicotero and Berger. And what also really helps too is like I like the whole setting where it takes place in the sort of like in the jungle area of Cambodia. think it was a cool little setting for a zombie film, and it goes by at a quick pace. It's like 89 minutes long. It has Dean Cain, very likable as the lead, and I really like the group of actors that are around him. I can kind of agree with this right here from Fangoria. It's like a mixture of 48 Hours and Dawn of the Dead. Because, it's about two guys teaming up, which is Guy Torry and Dean Cain, along with the other people from Dean Cain's Special Forces team, taking care of these zombies, pretty much. And it is pretty much like a Dawn of the Dead, sort of like with a buddy sort of like aspect to it. Like a buddy cop sort of like dynamic duo, I guess you would say. And I think overall it's a really fun movie. It's not. I don't want to go into it too much without spoiling anything, but it's not really a film that you can like really explain a whole without spoiling it. It's got a really fun finale. I will say that's got a fun, satisfying finale at the very end. And if you like zombie films and you like horror comedies and you want to see like a good zombie film with some humor and some good gore, I highly recommend that you check out Dead and Deader. It's definitely well worth your time, and I highly recommend that you give this a look. So that is pretty much it for my review for Dead and Deader. Thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for the next review for the 31 Days of Horror. So thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time. You guys take care.